There are moments in life when we suddenly realize that time waits for no one. But the most precious thing isn't some far-off plan, but the moment we're living in right now, with the people we love. This is the story of three sisters, each with a different life, a different path. Yet every autumn, without fail, they return to the old wooden house on a hill, a place once filled with childhood laughter and memories that never faded. But this year, something feels different. A strange quietness lingers. A subtle sense of life's limits hangs in the air. They're all older now, and in that one fragile moment of sitting together, a conversation unfolds that changes the way they see life and death. On a small hill blanketed in fallen golden leaves, there stood an old wooden house nestled quietly among towering pine trees. It was the place where three sisters once grew up, where they used to run, laugh, and spend a gentle, carefree childhood. Life eventually led them down three different paths. One chased a career in the city, another chose a simple life in the countryside, and the third wandered through distant lands. Yet no matter how busy or far apart they were, they held on to one sacred promise. Every autumn, no matter where life took them, they would return to this house, just to be together again. This year, the promise was kept once more. That evening, warm lights glowed from the little house, and the scent of ginger tea gently filled the kitchen air. A soft breeze rustled through the faded wooden window frame, carrying the unmistakable whisper of fall. The three women sat side by side, quietly pouring tea, occasionally laughing over an old memory. But behind the laughter, there was something tender, something hard to name. Time had passed faster than they realized. There were silver strands in their hair now, a quiet stillness in their eyes. And in that familiar space, something different was quietly weaving its way between them. The afternoon sky faded to gray, and the last rays of sunlight slipped through the trees, casting soft golden streaks across the worn wooden floor. In the cozy room where the three sisters sat together, a quietness gently settled in. Not an awkward silence, but the kind that only exists between people who know each other so well. There's no need to say much at all. They had sat like this many times before. Every year, the same scene repeated itself. Steaming cups of tea, the sound of wind dancing across the porch roof, old stories brought up again, followed by bursts of laughter like children. But this time, something felt different. A vague yet unmistakable feeling, as if each of them was quietly holding on to something that's slowly slipping away. The eldest sister, the spirited one, was quieter this year. Her gaze lingered on a photo hanging on the wall. The three of them as little girls, standing beside their mother under the old pear tree in the backyard. The picture had faded, its edges peeling, but their smiles remained untouched by time. Suddenly, she turned away quickly, as if afraid she might not be able to hold back a tear. The middle sister, who had lived through an unfulfilled marriage, was silent too. She wasn't rushing to talk about new projects or future plans like in years past. Instead, her hand gently touched the tablecloth their mother had once embroidered, softly, slowly, as if she were trying to feel each thread, each memory stitched into the fabric. She said nothing, but her eyes, heavy with quiet sadness, said everything. And the youngest, the once carefree girl who used to carry laughter like the wind, sat still as well. Her gaze wandered out the window, where autumn leaves twirled gently in the breeze. Her face was still youthful, but there was something in her eyes now, something more grown up, something calm, something quietly changed. No one said it out loud, but all of them felt it. Age, time, the quiet arrival of life's limits. These gatherings were no longer just for reminiscing. They had become silent reminders. No one could know if the next time all three would still be here. And in that silence, the silence of three hearts once scattered, now close again, something deeper than words began to take shape. A conversation not just to remember, but to reflect, to awaken. The wall clock let out a soft chime, a gentle reminder that another day was quietly slipping away. In the small room, the three sisters still sat together, hands wrapped around cups of tea that had long since gone cold. No one bothered to pour more. They just sat there, in silence, each one lost in her own thoughts. Then, the eldest sister finally spoke. Her voice was still warm and steady, just like always. But this time, there was a weight behind her eyes. I still remember the time we rode our bikes in the rain and got scolded so badly by Mom, she said with a soft chuckle. It feels like it just happened yesterday, but somehow decades have gone by. She smiled, but it was a smile that couldn't quite hide the shift inside her. Back then, I thought we'd always be young, always together like that. But now, I realized time moved faster than I ever expected. She placed her cup gently on the table, her hands folding together as if trying to hold onto something slipping away. This year, we're all here, still whole. But who's to say we'll all be able to sit here like this next year? Her words rang through the room like a fragile bell in the quiet. No one answered right away, because it was a truth they had all thought about. Just no one had been brave enough to say it out loud. She had always been the one who lived by plans. Her life had been charted with clear milestones. The year she got married, the year she had her first child, the year she retired. She measured life in years, like most people do. What will happen this year? What's the plan for next year? How many more years to finish this, to reach that? And now, as those numbers slowly narrowed, she could feel it, the fragility of her remaining years. Getting older doesn't shock you because of gray hair or slower pace. It's the moment you realize time is not infinite, and not every year will come with a next year. I'm not saying this to dampen the mood. She continued softly, eyes drifting toward the distant trees. I just think it's time we're honest, with ourselves and with each other. So if there ever comes a day when we're not all here, at least we won't have wasted a single moment. The room fell silent again. But this time, it wasn't the vague silence of the earlier hours. It was the quiet of acceptance, the kind that comes when hearts begin to understand a deeper truth. Life isn't measured by how far ahead we plan. It's only truly lived when we cherish the moments we still have. Together. After the eldest sister finished speaking, a soft breeze drifted through the window. The autumn leaves outside rustled gently, as if they too were listening to the quiet conversation shared between three women who had already walked through half their lives. The middle sister remained silent. Her fingers traced the rim of her cooled teacup, her gaze resting on the weathered wooden table beneath her. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, yet firm in its clarity, she finally spoke. I think maybe you're still looking too far ahead. Next year, can any of us even be sure we'll see tomorrow? Her words swept through the room like a cold wind, not one of fear or panic, but the kind that stills you, makes you pause, makes you think. She had once been the one who lived in a blur of plans and deadlines, a life mapped out in 5-year stretches, always with a vision of what came next. But life had its own way of interrupting. An unexpected divorce, a long illness, too many silent nights spent shouldering pain alone. It all changed her. She came to know what it meant, to go to bed unsure if she'd have the strength to wake up the next morning. And in those fragile, uncertain days, she learned something that no calendar could teach. Life doesn't wait for your plans. It only lives in the days you're still given. I'm not saying thinking about the future isn't important. She continued, her eyes meeting her older sister's with a rare gentleness. But sometimes, while we're running toward next year, we forget that today is quietly slipping away. She reached out, resting her hand near her sister's on the table. A simple gesture, but it held warmth and truth. Today, right here, right now, we're all present. We're all together. We're still hearing each other laugh. To me, that's already a gift, and it's the only thing I'm sure I truly have. The youngest sister gave a quiet nod, something in her eyes soft and still. The eldest didn't reply right away, but a faint, wistful smile began to form on her lips. It was true. Some people measure life in years, but others, like the middle sister, have learned to measure it in days. In each morning, they still open their eyes. In every breath they take. In the simple miracle of witnessing sunlight and hearing the voices of those they love. And in that moment, as the afternoon light began to fade, all three of them seemed to feel something shift, a quiet, undeniable truth rising to the surface. Life doesn't live in next year or next month. It lives right here, in today, in this very moment, while we're still here, fully present. In the little wooden room, dusk slowly settled in, casting a warm golden hue across every corner of the house. A light that was tender, comforting, but also carried a quiet sense of fragility. The two older sisters had already spoken their truths, and now all eyes turned to the youngest, the girl who was once the most spirited child of the family, now gentler, softer, shaped by the stumbles and storms of adulthood. She looked up at her sisters, then turned her gaze to the window, where autumn leaves were drifting slowly in the wind. "You're both right," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Some people live by the year, some by the day, but sometimes even a single day can feel like a luxury. I've felt that before." The older sisters didn't speak. They knew she was about to share something she'd never said aloud. "There was a morning," she continued, "when I woke up in a hospital room, with machines beeping around me, echoing off the sterile walls. I had no idea what had happened, only that every breath I took felt like something was pressing down on my chest, like my lungs were trying to breathe through fear itself. And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about the years I'd lived, or the dreams I hadn't finished. All I could think was, will I be able to take one more breath?" Her voice slowed, as if moving backward through time, back to the edge between life and the unknown. And in that moment, I understood something I'd never really grasped before. Life isn't found in long-term plans. It doesn't wait for tomorrow. It doesn't promise anything about the future. It only exists in the breath we are taking right now. Every single breath is a miracle. She placed her hand gently over her chest, where her heart beat quietly beneath her ribs. "We're sitting here together today, not because we know we'll have next year, not because today was written on anyone's schedule, but simply because our breaths are still flowing, still moving. And as long as they are, we can love, we can be grateful, and we can live fully with one another." Silence returned to the room, but this time it wasn't uncertain or heavy. It was the kind of stillness that comes after truth has settled into the soul. Each sister, in her own quiet way, began to feel her own breath, that invisible, often forgotten rhythm that reminded them they were still here. They had once lived by years. Then they learned to live by days. And now, because of the youngest, they saw the truth more clearly than ever. Life is not measured by calendars or clocks. It is woven from single moments. Each breath a thread, each heartbeat a note. Not sooner, not later, just now. And now is enough. The last golden rays of sunlight spilled gently across the wooden floor, casting a soft, amber carpet beneath the feet of the three women. In the quiet room, where even the whisper of wind slipping through the cracks could be heard, the sisters remained seated, no one speaking, no one moving. They weren't in a rush to leave. They were feeling. They were listening, not to each other's voices, but to the rhythm of their own hearts, echoing in the silence. A silence not empty, but deeply awakening. After all the words had been shared about the long years behind them, the fragile presence of each day, and the sacredness of every breath, it was as if they had touched something deeper than language, something only those who have lived through enough storms, felt enough loss, and awakened enough times can ever truly grasp. Life doesn't wait for the perfect day to begin. It's already happening right now. The eldest looked at her younger sisters, her eyes soft, rimmed with red but glowing with tenderness. The middle sister gently reached for the youngest hand, a quiet thank you that needed no words. And the youngest, the one who had once been the most fragile, now stood as the quiet spark behind their shared awakening. She simply smiled and said nothing more. Perhaps over all these years, they had each been chasing something grand, a milestone, a goal, a moment that would finally feel worth it. But in the end, all they ever truly needed was this: an afternoon together, a few cups of cool tea, a scattering of old memories, and a shared stillness that let them finally see. And in that quiet peace, each of them made a silent vow that from now on, they would live differently. They would no longer wait for special occasions to call someone they love. They would stop postponing kind words, thinking there would always be more time. They would no longer let reunions slip into someday or when things calm down, because now they understood the most precious things only ever exist in the present. If your parents are still alive, call them today. If you still have old friends, set a coffee date this weekend. If your dreams are still quietly waiting, take the first step now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when it's more convenient. Just now, while you can still breathe, while your heart still beats, while love still lives, whole and unspoken in your chest. Because in the end, life isn't measured by length, but by depth, not by years, but by how awake you are in each fleeting, precious moment. Dear friend, if you stayed with this story until its very last moments, then maybe, just maybe, somewhere deep in your heart, you too have carried the same questions those three sisters once did. Questions about time, about aging, about the quiet presence of the people we love, and how easily they can slip away unnoticed. But perhaps the most important truth was the one the youngest sister shared. We can't wait for the perfect day to begin living fully, because life has never once promised us a tomorrow. So if there's someone you cherish, say thank you today. If there's a dream you've been holding close, take even the tiniest step toward it right now. And if you're feeling weary, lost in the noise of the world, please remember this. As long as you are breathing, you are still alive. You still have a chance to love, to choose, to change your story. Don't measure your life by the years you hope will come. Don't wait until it's too late to realize what was truly precious has already passed you by. Live as if every single breath you take is the very last miracle you'll ever be given. Thank you for listening to this story today. May you always stay awake to the beauty around you. Live with gratitude and give your whole heart to every moment you're still here.